Hey everyone, welcome back. Today's all about taking charge of your CI pipeline with self-hosted Gitlab runners. With a self-hosted runner, it runs right on your local machine, but the pipeline script is still managed through Gitlab. No more stressing about build minutes running out. Alright, so I've got a repo here with a basic test environment that Playwright creates when you initialize it. This is what you get when you run npm init playwright at latest. It generates a few sample tests you can run. Nothing fancy, but it gives us something to work with for the pipeline. You can use whatever you want, but I'm using this. We'll also bring in a MongoDB database, so we can see how the runner handles services. Alright, let's start. Go to your project settings, then CI/CD and find the runners section. We're going to turn off shared instance runners, and instead we will use a project runner. Choose a memorable tag for your runner. This tag will be crucial when defining your pipeline configuration. We'll get to that later. I named the runner Docker Executor, because I'm going to use Docker for this runner. Check the Lock to Current Projects box, so the runner only works on current projects, and hit Create Runner. Now, Gitlab provides you with a unique registration command. For that we need the Gitlab runner executable, so let's head to Google and grab it. There are install instructions for all platforms. Since I'm using a Mac, I'll walk you through the installation for macOS. But don't worry, it's just as easy for other operating systems too. First, download the binary using curl, then add execute permissions to the file. Now, it's time to register this bad boy. Head back to the page where we created the runner to grab the command. It'll ask you a few questions. Leave the Gitlab instance as the default. I'll leave the runner name as the default too. When it asks for the executor, choose Docker. It's flexible and works well as a general option. Next, we'll set the Docker image. I'm using the latest node image, as I need npm for the pipeline installs. And that's it for registration. The runner's configuration is saved in the config.toml file. You can always tweak or review settings there. I'm going to quickly register a second runner with a shell executor, just to show you the difference between the two. After that, we'll install and start the service. This creates a background process that handles the pipeline jobs on your machine. A quick system reboot might be needed at this point. You should now see your newly created runners listed. Next, we need to set up the self-hosted runners in the CI pipeline. I'll clean up the default pipeline and set up two jobs, one for the Docker executor and one for the shell executor. We'll compare them side by side to see what's different. In the Docker job, I'll define MongoDB as a service. The service image is the latest MongoDB image. The service name Mongo will also be its address in the script, so when I check if it's running, I'll use Mongo instead of localhost like I would locally. I'll add a couple of commands to show what OS we're running and who the user is. Uname and whoami. These will give different results for each executor. Next, we'll install Mongosh to check if MongoDB is working. The last 3 lines will install Playwright, its browsers, and run the tests. Now the important part, tags. You need to assign the correct tag to this job, the same one we used when setting up the runner. We'll start with the same uname and whoami commands, but I'm adding echo path here to see the full path. I had some trouble figuring out what was missing before, but after echoing the path, I realized which commands needed their full paths. Turns out mongosh was one of them. You probably don't need to worry about this. I think the problem is that I'm using Z shell instead of the safer bash shell. Let's go back a bit in the video to see what tags we used earlier. Oops, I messed up the tags. Let's fix them. Before committing the pipeline file, don't forget to start Docker Desktop on your local machine. Alright, let's run this puppy. As expected, the shell runner job failed. This was intentional to highlight the difference between the two. The Docker job has MongoDB as a service, but the shell runner doesn't. We'd need to start MongoDB manually on the local machine. Uname gives us MacBook Air, the host machine, and whoami shows the current user. The Docker job's still running, but we can check out its uname and whoami results. Here, uname shows the OS of the node image, and whoami is the root user in the Docker container. It looks like the Docker job found the MongoDB service. It pulled the MongoDB image in the beginning and fired up the service. Jumping to the end of the log, everything's looking good. The Playwright tests passed, so the Docker executor worked as expected. For the shell executor, we just need to start MongoDB manually and rerun the job. I'll start MongoDB locally using Docker, then hop over to Gitlab and retry the pipeline. And there we go. That's it for today. If you liked this tutorial, leave a comment and hit that like and subscribe button. Thanks for watching.